Welcome back to the Running Wine Mom podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Cieslinski, aka the Running Wine Mom. Today we're diving into the topic that's both vital and eye-opening for every parent out there, the safety of the products we use for our kids. From baby walkers to water beads and even the sleep products we trust, there are hidden dangers lurking in the marketplace. But who's responsible for ensuring the safety of these items? And why do so many unsafe products still make it into our homes? To help us explore these questions, I'm thrilled to welcome Oriene Shin. Oriene is a manager of safety advocacy at Consumer Reports, where she works tirelessly to advocate for stronger safety regulations and corporate accountability. Her work sheds light on the alarming lack of oversight in product safety, especially online, and how parents can navigate these challenges. Without further ado, let's welcome Ori. Hi.
Hey, it's really great to be here.
Yes, great to have you. And we met in the spring at Consumer Reports, so it's great to see you. I can't believe it's been like 6 months, but
Yeah, I was just thinking about that the other day, being like, man, has it really been 6 months? And yeah, it was a great trip though. It was really nice to meet all of you.
so fun. I had that was such a cool experience that's like one of like the highlights of my year, just getting to see everything you guys do, which was really cool. So before we get into all things Consumer Reports, to start each episode, we have our wine and win of the week segment. This is where we share a favorite bottle of wine, vent about something that has been bothering us, and celebrate our recent victories. So grab a glass, take a deep breath, and let's get started. So what is your wine WINE of the week?
So right now I'm actually pregnant with my first kid. So right now I've been holding off. I do my first drink will be an IPA. I've already decided that. A very specific one, Maine Beer Company Lunch. But right now, what I can drink, I've been pretty obsessed with trying to make a perfect cup of chai. So
Ooh.
trying to make it from scratch, and it's a lot of tinkering, but I think that's where I am right now.
Love it. And I'm excited for you to have that first cocktail after baby is really such a special one. And I had my husband like sneak in Prosecco to the delivery room, well, not delivery room, but the after room. And it was just so fun. I had the whole meat and cheese platter
Yeah,
too.
I'm also, you know what, an Italian sub with it would be perfect.
Yes. So what is your WHINE of the week?
So I've been thinking a lot about this, and I think right now it's kind of like the distrust in data and evidence that we're seeing right now. Like people just not knowing who to believe or what to trust when it comes to safety information about food or products. Like there's a lot of, well, it's not being used right. That's why it's unsafe. And it's like, well, no, not really, because products can always be made safer. And
Right.
companies have that responsibility to do that.
Yeah, the one thing that I never heard of the word survivor privilege before, but like it's something I think a lot that happens in the baby world, especially like with safe sleep, with using products. And people are like, oh, I used it for my baby. And think about our parents from the 80s. Like they're like, yeah, you guys were fine. It's like, well, there's a lot of research that shows things could be better.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about that as I'm going through, getting advice from older generations and from others. And I'm just like, wait, would you use, I was born in the 80s. I was an 80s baby too. And I was like, would you have used information from the 40s to take care of me in the 80s?
True.
And we're kind of in that same situation where it's like, I don't know if I would use the same tips and tricks from the 80s. Because I've also
Right.
seen pictures of me in a crib and it's horrifying. Furs, blankets, stuffed animals everywhere on my stomach. Why wouldn't we follow where the science has led us till today? If in the 80s you weren't going to use something in the 40s, why should it be that, I should be just following what happened in the 80s now?
Right. So true. It is. And it is something I was just even thinking of today, motherhood. Like you get so much advice, and my advice is just take what works for you and don't listen to anyone else. So what is your win of the week?
My win of the week. So for me, the win is actually from a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
Where we published this policy report about online marketplace accountability. And it came along with 2 consumer facing stories where we talked about how to keep yourself safe while shopping online, which I think is a perfect time right now, especially as we're entering the holiday season. And we know that online shopping is just such a dominant force of our lifestyle now. Like, we're not really to brick and mortar, as many brick and mortar stores anymore. So, we're shopping offline, online, and so I'm really proud of the work that the team, myself and the team, put in to get this information out there, and so that we can now affect change, like from the government perspective and also from like a company perspective.
Yeah, it's super important. And we will dive into a little bit more because the article that you sent me today, I was like really shocked about the accountability that these places don't have to take, which is wild to me.
It's wild. It's wild to think what's going on right now, and people just assume things are safe, and we know people expect things to be safe, and that there is this assumption that if it's for sale, it must have been tested.
And it's not true. So I always like to ask my guests, what's one significant challenge you've successfully navigated shaping your journey to where you are today?
I think for me, being in kind of a high pressure nonprofit policy world, overcoming or working on overcoming imposter syndrome. There is a lot of, self-doubt. You're surrounded by brilliant people who can just do things so much faster and better, or you think faster and better than you. And not sure if I've successfully navigated it yet, but I'm definitely on the path to kind of just like recognize that, like I'm good at my job, and it's not imposter syndrome anymore. And like I worked hard for this, and that I deserve to be part of the conversation.
I love that for you. That's amazing. Imposter syndrome is terrible. It's just like, and so many people have it, especially women. And so it's really good to just be like, you know what? Who cares? I'm doing the best I can. And that's definitely good enough and better
Work
than
in
a lot of
progress
people.
for sure.
Yeah.
Years, but I mean, in this world, but I think now, work's getting recognized and people are seeing me as an expert. So it's a testament to what hard work and what like just perseverance and grit can get you.
I love that.
Thanks.
All right. So the running wine mom, we start with a little fitness. What's your favorite way to stay active?
So I have a puppy, so walks obviously because gotta get that energy out.
Yeah.
But I've also, since COVID, since like a couple of years ago, I've been a really regular goer of Orange Theory. So workouts, and I'm still going at 24 weeks. Trying to
Yay.
go every day, every other day, not every day. That would be
Yeah.
wild. And I'm really finding that weightlifting has been helpful, like for mental clarity, but also just like pregnancy's tough, and like there's a lot of limitations put on you. And so when you can still lift near to what you were lifting 6 months ago, it definitely feels like a win.
Yeah. And I felt as though working out in pregnancy was such an empowering thing because so many people just say, like, oh, just take 9 months to like not do anything. And then you're like, well, I'm just going to go through the most difficult thing of my entire life. And then I need to recover from it. And I want to be the strongest that you can be. So it's such a good thing that you're doing for yourself.
And I feel for those who have a difficult pregnancy. Like mine hasn't been too tough so far. And I totally understand that like I'm able to do this, but I'm able to do it too. It's been really amazing for my mental health too.
Yeah. Which, speaking of mental health, how does maintaining your fitness routine kind of contribute to that mental health
My
part of
mind
your life?
just like it's clarity. Like sometimes I'm just foggy, and like going for a long walk, or like, going to the gym has helped like just clear my mind and just find I'm kind of like just not feeling foggy anymore. Is how I can say.
Well, that's awesome. All right. So, next thing is parenthood, and you are expecting, which is so exciting. So, what were you least prepared for in pregnancy?
In pregnancy, the pregnancy itself, man, it's not easy. Like you hear about all the jokes about swollen ankles and backaches, but it's so much more than that. And like it's constant. It's not like you have it and then it goes away completely. It's kind of like it's okay, so my back doesn't hurt as much today, but I have round ligament pains that are really frustrating. Or
God, bringing me back.
or your back, or you throw out your shoulder because your joints are all loosey goosey, and it's just kind of an experience that I wasn't as prepared as I probably should have been, but more than halfway through, and I think I figured it out for the most part.
That's
We'll see what
awesome.
balls there are, though.
I know. It's such like and it's such a unique experience for an individually unique experience because like my pregnancy was not going to be the same as yours. So even if you do prepare, I feel like you still can't be prepared, especially for the mental part of it where your hormones are just like you're just not yourself and then your body's not itself and it's a lot.
Yeah. And it took about 23 weeks for me to feel baby, which is late.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so I learned a lot about why that is. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of learning.
Yeah. So what do you hope your parenting style is? Or have you thought about that?
I've been thinking a lot about this because I've been thinking back to like how I was raised and what I want to pull from that, what I don't. And
Mhm.
I think one of the things like my mom was a tiger mom, very, very much the immigrant mother who wanted the best for me, but it was a lot fear-based a lot of times. And
Mhm.
instead of fear-based, I want to be confidence building. And so like I want my kid to be, ambitious and go for what he wants. But I want him to want it for himself, not like to please others or do it for external recognition or something. Like those are all great, but I really want him to know that oh, it's a boy. Uh,
Yeah, as I was like thinking, I'm like, okay, I guess it's a boy.
yeah, I want him just to know that like if he works hard for it, it needs to be for himself and like build that confidence from within.
The one thing that I learned, and again, I don't know if anything I'm doing is right or not, but as you're saying this, I was thinking something that I saw about building internal confidence is instead of saying to them, like, I'm so proud of you. So they're always looking for external validation. Sometimes just say, are you proud of yourself for doing that? And I find myself using that a lot because, and then all of a sudden, like, they'll go, yeah, I am, they're only 4 and 2, but they say, yeah, and they might not recognize it. But I think that's something to go back to the imposter syndrome. I think a lot of type A, hardworking people are looking for the external validation for a lot of stuff. And when we're adults, we don't really get that. You don't really know. You just see other people and you're like, I don't know, they look like they're doing a great job, but how do I know what I'm doing?
Right. And it's the kind of like maybe it's like in the field I work in or just like the career I chose, but no news is good news, right? Like
Yeah.
if you hear from them, it's actually not great. And so like waiting for that positive reaffirmation is something I don't want him to rely on to like
Hmm.
get what he wants to get from life.
Yeah. Love that. And what's one piece of advice you would give to other expecting parents?
It's hard and it's okay not to always feel excited or happy about it. Like it's the biggest thing that I've had to like come to terms with myself is like everybody's like, "Oh, aren't you excited?" I'm like, "I'm a little anxious right now," or I'm actually pretty like it's tough right now for me. Like if you don't get a good night's sleep because that does happen, like inevitably, happens to me more than I want. But it's hard to and like this idea of just like being positive all the time is just not realistic. It's not realistic before pregnancy, and
Right.
it shouldn't have to be after, like during or after. And I think that's the biggest thing. And like to lean on your people, to your friends, your family, whoever you can trust, to give you that support you need and to give yourself grace and to
Hmm.
go at your own pace. Like just because somebody else is like feeling really euphoric and happy doesn't mean that if you're not feeling that, again, it's an individual experience. You need to feel that way.
Such good advice. So true. I love that. All right, so let's get into you and your role at Consumer Reports. Can you share a bit about your journey and what inspired you to kind of focus on consumer product safety, especially for the more vulnerable population like children?
Yeah, so my journey didn't start in consumer like in product safety or anything. It actually started in human trafficking. So my first job out of law school in DC was to work at an anti-human trafficking firm because I've always been like I've always had like a tendency to want to do something in human rights or consumer rights or something, and I had this opportunity to work at a anti-human trafficking nonprofit and work on really serious issues there about around sex trafficking and labor trafficking. And that just led me to realize just how complicated the world is and working on a lot of different laws and stuff. But then it's a really tough area. So eventually I burnt out. I had to find something else to work on. And I found this. I worked for a bar association, the National Asian Pacific American Bar Association, working on like civil rights and immigration issues, all very much like community focused so far as you can tell, like making sure everybody has the same rights or, are being treated as equal as we can. And then I came across this opportunity at CR at Consumer Reports to work on consumer protected issues. And I was looking into what product safety meant because I was just like everybody else 5 years ago where I was like, why is this an advocacy area? Like, what is so product safety? I'm like, oh my goodness, there's so much going on. Like, millions of people get hurt every year. Like,
Right.
1,000 people die because of unsafe products. And knowing the name of CR, I needed to take the opportunity. And so since then, I was able to work on infant inclined sleepers, safe sleep, work on issues that really impact our most vulnerable populations, like children, like you said. And I think the most important piece is that like I had the opportunity to work with parents impacted
Right.
who've lost children or have children who are impacted forever for their entire lives because of safety issues. And it's been incredibly rewarding it's something that needs to be done more, especially as more and more stuff comes in and more access we have to things internationally. Like we just need to be more vigilant as a society to make sure that the products you use for your child, your grandmother, your sibling, your sister, yourself are safe for you, because it's so easy right now for that not to happen.
Yeah. So, and we're going to talk about a few different areas of products for children and infants. But the first thing that I want to focus on is a more online retail and corporate accountability, which is one of the more recent articles that you wrote. And I was shocked at, like I said, the lack of accountability that they really have. So one of the articles mentions that they aren't really required to take responsibility for the safety of the product that they sell. Why is there such a critical gap in the consumer protection?
Yeah. So first, I want to just give credit to the journalist who wrote those pieces, Scott Medence. He's an amazing writer. Wrote the first one, and Alexander Frost wrote the other one. And kudos to them to really contextualize it for consumers. But really, the biggest impact right now is that a lot of our laws were written in the 70s and 80s or before. So if you think about what we were doing and how we were buying things back then, it wasn't online. You were going into a store, and there was just a stricter supply chain. Like things were just being reviewed more easily. But now with online marketplaces, you have if you're looking for a water bottle, you could buy it from maybe tens of thousands of different vendors. And how do you navigate that? And how does the platform navigate that? Like, that's a lot of people. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
And without like regulations or laws right now to kind of tell them like how to go about it, and it's really up to each platform to a certain degree, especially when it comes to third-party sellers. Now, if like the platform is selling it directly, like sold by Walmart or Amazon or Target, yeah, they're going to do their due diligence because they'll be on the hook for that. But if you buy something from a third-party seller they host, so they're like once removed, it's not clear what should happen there. And so the guardrails aren't as strong, and the platforms are aware and they're working on it, but it's a big problem. It's a complicated problem that's international.
Yeah.
It's just so much more complicated than it was even 40 years ago.
So what challenges do regulatory agencies like Consumer Product Safety Commission face when they're trying to enforce these safety standards with online platforms?
First of all, the law's not clear. The law's ever, but I think what makes it really tough for regulators is that, especially the agency we're talking about, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, they are tiny. They're so small, and they have such a small budget. Like, of all the public health and safety agencies that we have in the federal government, they are by far one of the smallest, if not the smallest. and they are tasked with the safety of, 15,000 different product categories. And so if you think about that, and then you just tack on and just like add the layer of what online shopping does, what kind of access consumers have to which product, it's an immense responsibility and an immense task that they need to do. They're doing it, they're working like tirelessly right now, and we're seeing the impacts, but to get 100% of them is not going to happen anytime soon,
Yeah.
especially without updates to the law.
So what role do you think these e-commerce giants like Amazon and Walmart, how do you think that they should ensure the safety of their products that they sell? What are some things that you think that they should be doing?
So if I had my way with it, if I
Yeah.
could convince them of everything, I mean, the first thing really is to provide consumers with the information that they should have. I mean, they're not able to go into a brick and mortar store and hold the product in their hand. And so if they have fuzzy pictures even, or just like information that might not be accurate, who know, like, I'm not saying that they are, I'm just saying if they're not, it's tough for a consumer or for you and I to navigate that, like without holding in, seeing it in person. If we have just a couple fuzzy pictures, how do we know to trust what? And
Right.
so that's definitely one area where I think they can really like bolster, is just like making sure one, consumers have the information, but also making sure that information is accurate, and that there aren't any like loopholes, or like the third party seller's not trying to get around any kind of like algorithm or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it's also just a matter of making sure that there's just better monitoring of vetting of who they're hosting, and making
Hmm.
sure that the products that they're selling like comply.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to baby products, like that is the most terrifying thing to me, especially as an expectant mom. Like, I am trying to navigate the world right now, and it's hard when I know that like it's tough to trust it, like trust my eyes.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
platforms need to support that.
Now, when we talked, I don't know if this would align properly. When we talked in May, I know that you had I think the water beads was like big within, the last time frame of, 6 months or so. And you guys had pressured online realtors to kind of remove some of those unsafe products. Has Consumer Reports can you share what you guys did with that, and if they've done anything else to pressure online realtors
Yeah,
to stop
sure. Like
selling
this,
safe products?
yeah, and I was thinking about this because it actually goes back to when I first started at CR working on the Rock and Plan incline sleepers, because incline
Hmm.
sleepers was actually the first product I worked on and asking companies to address.
Okay.
So in November 2019, we actually I sent my first like round of letters on behalf of CR, asking them, like showing them the evidence, being like, this is why they're unsafe. This is how many infants tragically passed. And it was incredible to kind of just see that reaction, that like response, because they're like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, we see why. And so we saw a number of retailers, including Amazon and others, and Walmart and others, take down incline sleepers and create a policy being like, incline sleep products are no longer allowed. And that was huge. And that really
Hmm.
showed us the power of just like even just asking
Yeah.
for something, like these big companies, tech platforms, marketplaces, like they want to do what's right. It's just a complicated world, and maybe some people have higher expectations than others. Some platforms have higher expectations than others, but in general, like I have to believe who's working there doesn't like wants what's best. And
Right. No, I was going to say, like, hopefully you're hoping that the profit doesn't outweigh
right,
safety of newborns.
exactly. And if they refuse or they're kind of reticent, it's just like, then we're gonna like turn it up a notch, and maybe we send out a petition and get consumers involved and see like and get like, I think we had a petition for infant inclined sleep products where we were asking the government to pass a regulation, and we got like 20,000 plus signatures
Wow.
from consumers to say, we want this is unsafe. And so we can also just like up the pressure when we need to. But I find that nowadays, especially as we're building these relationships, like with what, like, so incline sleepers happened, and when we found out about water beads, we are like, hey friend at platform,
Yeah.
hey big. Uh, This is another one that we have concerns about. And so
Right.
we were able to talk it through with them, and thankfully, a lot of them decided to pull them.
That's awesome. And that's going to lead us right into the next topic of infant sleep safety, because that was something I still, even with my kids, like my daughter slept in our room for the first time like 2 weeks ago because she was scared, and it was like for half the night, and it was just something that I was like, okay, I was comfortable with this, but anything sleep related I felt very hyper focused on. But we've really heard some shocking stories about dangerous infant sleep products, like, the incline sleepers. So can you explain, maybe first of all, why are these products so harmful?
So when we're talking about inclined products in general, it puts baby in a very, very unsafe position, like especially at a 30-degree angle. Baby's head, neck's not stiff yet, like neck's not strong enough to hold head yet. Head's bigger than rest of body. And so positional asphyxiation is the official term, the technical term, but it's really when baby's head like kind of slides down and they suffocate by themselves. Or these products sometimes have a lot of padding around their faces, and if their head turns, like, rebreathing can happen, and that can cause issues and,
Hmm.
suffocation that way. And then the surprising one for me when it came to inclined sleepers was that a lot of these were angled and then were designed so that the feet, like, rested on the bottom,
Okay.
and babies' legs are actually stronger than most of the rest of the body, right? And so babies were actually able to push up, and if they weren't like strapped in right, they would turn. And so there were a lot of instances of babies found face down in the product because then they couldn't like turn back around.
Right.
And that's just a terrifying like mixture of like design and incline and things like that. But really that's why like the safe sleep guidelines of the American Academy of Pediatrics is so clear that it needs to be a firm, flat surface that's not
Right.
angled more than 10 degrees.
Yeah. So even though we know all of the things that you just told us, why do unsafe products like the infant loungers remain available for purchase despite these risks?
So infant loungers, they're not regulated or they're
Yeah.
about to be regulated. So regulation was just finalized and approved like I think a month ago, not even. So it should go into effect next year, next spring. But the thing is that all of these like regulations or voluntary standards, they take a lot of time to create. There are a lot of interested parties involved, and to find what is safest versus, what could be best for a company, like that's the kind of like negotiations or discussions that have to continue, and it's not easy. It's not
Mhm.
easy to get these regulations or voluntary standards even in place. I mean, everybody's working tirelessly. Like, I appreciate the work that goes into it, but a lot of times the product will come first and then there will be standards attached after. And so if you
Mhm.
think about that, like when I first started, I was like, wait a minute. So a product could come online and be sold even before it was tested, but like, even before we knew it was safe. They'll say, there would be a lot of like like not claims, but there will be a lot of testing for like the mandatory stuff, like lead testing or certain mandatory things that all infant products have to meet. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the product itself is safe.
Right.
Incline sleepers like the Rock and Play didn't we didn't they didn't ever test whether the incline itself was safe, and that wasn't regulated until
My gosh. When, you can tell as a, expecting parent, there's so many choices that you have to make. I know, flat surface is something that is recommended, but what are some other things that parents should look for to ensure a sleep product is truly safe?
yeah, and I totally get it. Like I'm looking right now and I'm getting ready to bring a little one home. Like it's stressful. There's a lot of pressure to get it right too because like you don't and there's a chance that things could go wrong and that's terrifying. I think the first thing we need to acknowledge is the marketplace the marketplace is massive and there's new products being introduced all the time. and that the sources of information that people use to make their decisions can be overwhelming. Like my algorithm on Instagram is very much baby safety related, but not all of the information is I can trust.
And that is something also that everybody I realized as soon as I had a baby was a baby expert. And just because you have a baby, it doesn't mean that you're an expert at it necessarily. And it's really hard because on social media, it's nothing is technically regulated. You can just say I'm a baby expert in safe products, but like,
And the clickbait, right? Like, these are
yeah,
the 10 things you should do or the 10 things
right.
you shouldn't do. I think I saw one today where I was like, that is wild. Like, that goes against everything that's going on. But to answer your question, like how to ensure a sleep product is truly safe, like the best way, and I'll be completely honest, and this isn't the answer that most people will want to hear, is that keep to the crib, bassinet, play yard, those products that have strong mandatory standards. We have some of the strongest standards, federal regulations for those products in the world. If when in doubt, put them in that product, put them into a crib, bassinet, or play yard, because
Yeah.
that is the safest place for your kid, for your baby, and to just remember the ABCs of sleep too, and like just make sure that you're following those.
Yeah, that's great. That is so true. And we had a bassinet downstairs, I think, and then we had the crib upstairs, and we tried to have like something safe in every room. And we did have one of the was one of the I'm trying to think of which one it was. Not the dock top, but something like that, where we would sometimes put them in there, but like we would be sitting right there. But even those are unsafe. Like they're not
Yeah,
safe technically.
and it's and like I have to sympathize. It's hard because also I know what's coming up for me. Like
Yeah.
a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of desperation to get your baby to sleep. I was a colicky baby, so I know from my mother's stories about me that I was not easy. But I think we just also need to remember that babies aren't supposed to sleep more than a couple hours.
Right.
Newborns a couple hours at a time. And anything that, guarantees your newborn will sleep like all night should be a red flag, in my opinion.
Right.
Like, not in my, yeah, in my opinion, because that's not how newborns are supposed to develop. And
Right.
that's promising you'll get overnight sleep. You like with your newborn is just, that should be something you should second guess, as
Right.
a parent, I think.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. So, from going to sleep to moving around, let's talk about baby walkers. Can you explain why these are particularly dangerous and maybe the types of injuries that are most commonly caused by using them?
Yeah, so baby walkers have been around forever. I think I might have been in a baby walker.
Yeah, I think so. I think.
So these things are they put baby in a very they put them in a situation where they're wheeled first of all. So
Yeah.
an immobile child becomes very mobile, and I think there's a lot of underestimation on how fast that can actually be. And if you live in a multi-story home, that can be a little bit terrifying if y- y- the living room feeds into stairs that go downstairs without any like door frame or anything. And so there are a lot of things to be concerned about, whether it's going too fast and hit like ramming into a sharp corner or a piece of furniture or a wall. Tipping over could also possibly happen if they go from one level to another, like a step down. But then stairs is also just a terrifying thought. And so the voluntary standard for these things in the US have tried to account for that for door frames. So they have to be wider than a door frame now. That wasn't always,
Mm,
but you can still also find hand-me-downs that probably don't meet those standards. Like maybe your parents gave you one or you found one in a flea market or something, and it can put baby at risk. And also developmentally, it doesn't actually help baby learn how to walk. And so the benefits to a walker, the more I think about it, the benefits to using a walker versus not, like plummet dramatically when you realize it doesn't help them walk, it doesn't help them learn to walk, and it just makes a baby much more mobile by adding wheels to
Yeah.
a very curious being.
Yeah, that was the product we did not use, but my mother-in-law definitely had like one of the old school ones that she would let them go around in the den with when she would watch them. And I was like, I don't really use this anymore.
Yeah,
Um, s-
go through that.
yeah. So what are the challenges to banning a product like this in the US, and who are kind of the key stakeholders involved?
So I will say the American Academy of Pediatrics, AP, have been calling for a ban on these products for years.
Hmm.
And CR agrees with that position because, like I said, for us, the benefits don't really outweigh the risks of injury or, something more serious. So the biggest challenge is really the law. The law makes it very difficult for anything to happen quickly. So the best thing would be for Congress to pass a law. We're seeing states, take action, like New York and New Jersey, who are trying to make to ban these products in their states. There are a lot of like legal reasons why that might be complicated, but they're trying to push the issue. The other thing is that we're going against major manufacturers that are making a ton of money off of these and are um, are very powerful voices when it comes to what can be done for which product.
Yeah. So to move on to things that maybe children a little bit older may use, and this was a topic that we got to talk about, was water beads. And when we met in the spring, we got to talk about the dangers associated with them. Can you kind of elaborate on these risks and why they're really so severe?
Yeah. So thanks for raising water beads again. I've actually, so right now there's a proposed rule out there, and so I've been kind of reviewing materials, and I was just listening to some testimony of some impacted parents, and the dangers associated with these things can be life altering. It can create blockages in the GI tract and the intestines, aspiration. There are incidents where these little water beads get inhaled and then lodged into the lungs or inserted into kids will be kids. They're going to stick things into their ears, their nose.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about things that are the size of a pinhole that then grow, and we're talking about little bodies, it's very different if I as an adult had a couple of these little pin size products and they grew. They're less of a risk to me than they are to a little body like a 4 or 5 year old. And so we've seen a lot of internal blockages that happen where like they have to be surgically removed, which can be very, very which can
Yeah.
also lead to necrosis in certain situations where the bowel starts to die. Like there's just so many lifelong impacts that could happen when these products are ingested or inhaled. And it's really tough to make sure you've gotten every single one of these water beads because they come in thousands. You can buy them by the thousands or tens of thousands. And I don't know about you, but I'm not sitting around to count every single water bead. And they bounce when they're dry, especially. They're very bouncy and they can get stuck into little crevices, and it can be very tough to make sure that like maybe for your 6 or 7 year old who knows better, maybe they're safe. But if you have like a 3 year old, 4 year old who's still exploring with their mouths and you're trying to do everything right, as a lot of these parents have, they can still bounce around and they can still gain access to them. So it's really scary to think.
Yeah.
They also don't present like when there is a blockage, sometimes it just looks like a tummy ache or
Yeah.
something related, like a symptom that you attribute to something else less severe. And so it's tough to also find.
Yeah.
Like x-rays, they're not metal, they're this polymer, so they might be tough to find, even in x-rays or ultrasounds. And so it's tough, and it's a tough one
Yeah.
where like it's something that we don't need. Like we can use a lot of things. Like this is something where I think we can use some things from the 80s, like grapes, like half
Right.
grapes, like for sensory, or like cooked spaghetti maybe. but like it's the reason why I don't know why we would need these water beads specifically.
Yeah, I know. I still remember our conversation with it. And when this episode's out, I'll share the video that you had talking about it, which it was just, I never put the connection that if you swallowed it, it would do the same thing as if you put it in water, like duh. But
Yeah.
also, I just think parents maybe don't realize that. So, what role did public advocacy and parental feedback play in pushing major retailers to stop selling these water beads?
So there are some amazing parents out there who are impacted, their children are still affected by ingesting water beads, who are just tireless advocates. And we're definitely here to CR and other organizations like ours are there to support their work and their voices and lift them up. And because of it, we were able to, as you mentioned earlier, really convince major retailers to stop selling these as toys, including Target and Walmart and others. But this is also where like there's an intersection with online marketplace work because there are sellers who will try to circumvent the policies that these platforms put together. And so it's always a whack-a-mole there. So you can kind of see how these like issues like coincide and just like make it really difficult for parents and
Yeah,
that
seriously.
it's something that we're trying to continue to work on. But public advocacy, there is a bill in Congress that was introduced. There's, like I said, proposed regulations right now that we're submitting our thoughts into in the next couple of weeks. And all of this is really because of the work that especially the parents have been able to push through and share their stories, which are like the most powerful stories you can hear.
Yeah. Well, we've learned about a lot of things that may be scaring the parents that are listening, but I want to talk about a little parental action and awareness. So, what advice do you have for parents? What can they do to protect their children when regulatory systems fail or lag behind? Like, what can they be doing to prevent this?
It is a lot about like what choices, individual choices the parent wants to make too. But it really is about making sure that you get the right information from the right sources. And right now, CR is ramping up its coverage on baby products and safety issues related to baby and children's products. So we're really hoping to create more of an impact there and get people, parents, caregivers, the information that they need. And we're really leaning into this because we realize that we have this opportunity as CR who does testing, who is evidence based, and called has successfully called for certain changes that we hope to reach more parents and
Yeah.
give them a trusted source because we know there's so many sources out there. Um, Another thing is really just to if you feel like a lot of it is gut, and I think as parents or parents to be, we need to trust our gut more. If if you just don't feel like, an incline is right, then trust that gut. Like I know it might be easy for the first couple of nights where you get more sleep, but if you're not feeling easy about it, then like listen to that.
So, if a parent does find that a product is unsafe, is there a way for them to report it or how does that work?
Yeah. Yeah. So saferproducts.gov is the CPSC, the Consumer Product Safety Commission's reporting tool. And if you encounter, you know what, this product that I'm using for my kid isn't working properly, or like I'm going to provide a very extreme, like non-true example here, but like this product threw my kid across the room, you can go to saferproducts.gov and report that. And so that's one way to make sure that you can let the regulators know what's going on. And letting your community know too that, you know what, like this happened to me, be on the lookout. And really this has to be a collective effort to make sure that we get the change that we want, because we're against some forces right now where like people like they don't want change.
Yeah.
Like companies are very slow to change because there is a lot of times we'll hear, well, there's not enough data to show that something's unsafe. And I'm like, well, that data is incidents, and those incidents are injuries and deaths. Like, we can't wait until we see more injuries and deaths to make change.
Yeah. With human beings. Like,
Exactly.
one is enough,
Right. Exactly. Like, it might not be your baby, but it is somebody's baby, and that
Mhm.
family is changed forever.
Yeah.
And that's the type of situation we don't want to be in.
So besides Consumer Reports, is there any trusted resources or organizations that you would recommend for parents to look to stay informed about product safety issues?
So cpsc.gov, the Consumer Product Safety Commission website, provides provides information about recalls, as well as any warnings they have about safety. They also provide safety tips. There's other organizations like Charlie's House or Consumer Federation of America that are also working tirelessly on safety issues. For water bees, that water bee lady is an amazing resource. Ashley is an amazing advocate and has doing some incredible work driving that change. And yeah, CR,
Yeah.
consumerreports.org/babies will take you to our
Okay.
page for that.
Yeah, I will link all that. All right, so let's talk about the future. Looking forward, what are some upcoming policy initiatives or advocacy efforts that you're most excited about that maybe aim to protect children from unsafe products?
I'm really excited about this online marketplace work that we're driving right now. It's not just about, trying to change laws, but it's also trying to change company culture and policy. And so, like, we're also very much engaged with platforms to see what we can get done, even before laws can, because one way or another, the marketplace needs to be safer, and we're definitely pushing really hard to get that done.
Love that. Well, you've given us so much information. Is there anything maybe that we missed or an insight that you'd like to provide that we haven't covered before we wrap it up?
I think this is a scary issue, and it can feel very serious, but understand that this is all information to make sure that you do the best that you can. And it's not about reaching the perfect. It's getting to it's progression. It's not about like getting everything perfect or anything like that.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. That's a great way to end it. Thank you. All right. Yeah, you did great. That's going to bring us to the end of another episode of The Running Wine Mom. I want to give a huge thank you to Ori for joining us today and sharing her insights on product safety for our little ones. As parents, caregivers, and advocates, it's so important for us to stay informed about the products we bring into our homes and to speak up when we see opportunities for change. Remember, even small actions like sharing what you learned today can make a big difference. If you want to learn more about Ori's work or stay up to date with Consumer Reports advocacy efforts, I'll include some helpful links and resources in the show notes. And I even have a discount code that I will share in the show notes as well. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it. You can follow me on Instagram at @therunningwinemom_. And Ori, where can the listeners find you?
Oh, you can find me at consumerreports.org/baby. Our advocacy also has an Instagram. CR also has an Instagram account, so follow us there. We always post information and safety tips there as well. So hope to see you there.
Yeah, awesome. So thank you so much for joining me today. Remember, you are strong, you are capable, and you are all amazing. Until next time, keep running, keep sipping, and keep embracing the joy of motherhood. Cheers, and I will be back next Tuesday.